Hi again from Montreal, virtual Montreal. Well, as the title says, this second video will bring you through a brief tour of the DMGT. Now, you are now familiar with this visual representation of the DMGT. You can see there are 5 major blocks with different colors. In the next 10 minutes, I will try to show you some details about each of these blocks. What might be good if you could have a large size copy of the figure in front of you, it might help following the presentation and the discussion. Let's start with a short task. Remember this figure that you had in the preceding video? It showed that talented and gifted individuals were in the top 10%, the part at the right of the figure. And in your classroom, if you think of your own students, I would guess that your top 10 students represent the 3 best in your classroom of 30 or so students. Now think of them, of this group that are your academically talented students. The task parameters will be simple. I want you to ask yourself, why do they achieve much better than your average students? What are the causal influences that make them sit at the top in terms of achievement? Now take a sheet of paper, separate that sheet in 3 parts, top, middle, and bottom. Put the name of each of these 3 students in each part, and then underneath, try to identify 3 reasons, 3 causal influences that make each of these students the best among your group. Well, there can be many reasons. It could be because they study more, it could be all kinds of things. And here is a series of examples that I can give you to just help you identify. Look at the first ones. They are about cognitive abilities, learning rapidly, memorizing rapidly and easily, taking lots of time to study, or focusing easily when they study, being efficient when they study, having parents that value education or parents that supervise their child in terms of his homework. It can be things like loving to learn or having good willpower to resist temptations. All these are possible influences that will make students achieve better and become the best in their group. Now, you can imagine other reasons. At this point, you can just put the video on pause, complete the task, and then come back again when it is finished. So, see you later. Hi again. Now I assume you have completed the task. Let's look at what it might look like. Here is an example of a completed task. You can see, for example, that for student 1, the first reason is about loving to learn. This is motivation. And the second one is about cognitive abilities, being able to memorize very rapidly. And you can see in the second student that, again, you find some cognitive ability in reason B. So these are examples that you could have put into your own choice of students. Now, as I was developing the DMGT over the past 3 decades, I gathered and compiled all sorts of influences from the literature, from case studies, not only in education, but also in arts and in sports. Well, everywhere talent can manifest itself. I put all these things into big categories, and then within each category, I created subcategories. And within each subcategory, I created some subcategories. And at the end, what did I have? Well, I had the DMGT. As you can see, the DMGT has components like this here, and the gifts here, and the developmental process. These are the main components, and within each of them, you have subcomponents, like the domains here in the gifted area, or the fields of talents here in the talent component. All these represent the subcategories, what I call the subcomponents. And within each, there is a third level, which I call the facets. They are not numbered clearly because it would be too complex, but they are there. And they represent the complexity of the causal influences of talent development. Let's have a brief tour of each of these main components. First, well, the gifts. You know about them already. You know that in terms of explaining academic talent, it is the intellectual gifts that have the main impact on achieving well in school. The others, well, they don't play much of a role. Even creativity, which is a bit sad. The second one is the developmental process itself. And within that developmental process, there is one subcomponent called investment, which is more important because it tells about the amount of time you take for learning, homework, studying, and also the amount of energy you put into that activity, concentration and focus. These are important explanations of possible achievement in school. The next one, we get into the catalysts. Here is the intrapersonal set of catalysts. They are very, very important. And within that area, there are three elements, subcomponents. The first one is mental traits. Mental traits is all about personality and temperament. Think of characteristics you know well, like impulsivity, or conscientiousness, or perfectionism, or openness to new ideas, or resilience. All these things are related to personality, and they might have an impact on student achievement. The other two are here at the bottom, called motivation and volition. Well, motivation is about choosing your goals. What do you want to reach in life? What kind of talent do you want to develop? And these goals are related to values and to your beliefs. The other one is volition. So one is about choosing your goal. Volition is about reaching that goal. What kind of energy will you put into going through all the activities and the effort and the difficulties and the occasional failures to attain the goal you have chosen? This is about willpower and determination. Now the last one, the last big component is environmental characteristics. You see there three major subcomponents: the milieu, the social, the geographic, or the family environment. The second one is about significant individuals. You know, the parents and the teachers and the peers and the mentors. All these people may play a significant role in helping a student reach high school achievement. And the third one is about provisions or services. You know, like enrichment. What kind of enrichment is offered? And what kind of grouping makes possible having all the talented students having a special enrichment curriculum? And finally, acceleration. Accelerative practices like early entrance to school or grade skipping are all associated with the environmental catalysts. So, if we come back to our example, you can see that the 9 examples I have shown now have, at the end of each, a code within parentheses. The code represents the component here, the subcomponent, and the facet. For example, if a student loves school learning, for me, it means it is an intrapersonal catalyst of I, and then it's motivational, the M, and it is intrinsic motivation, the I there. And we can do the same for the third one, for example, close parental supervision. It means that it is an environmental catalyst. It is about influential individuals and more specifically the family, the parents. So EIF. Well, you could stop the video right now and just play with the codes and see what kind of interpretation you would make out of them. But we have to move on to the next section. Well, you remember that section at the back, the pink area background, and it reminds us that we do not control all the factors that have some importance in academic talent development. As the famous psychologist Atkinson said, all human accomplishments can be ascribed to 2 crucial rolls of the dice, accidents of birth and background. Well, accidents of birth mean or refer to our genetic endowment, which we do not control, but we get from our parents. And accidents of background refer to the environment in which we are raised from birth until adulthood, and which also we did not control. So that's the chance factor in our life. As a summary integration of what we've seen of the 4 causal components, let's look at an example, the example of Peter and Paul. If you look at the width of the 2 rectangles, they are equal. They show that both students have achieved the same level of talent development, but the different little colored parts indicate that they did not achieve it in the same way. For example, Paul is more gifted intellectually than Peter. On the other hand, Peter shows more intrapersonal catalysts, maybe more motivation or more willpower, but there's more of it. There is more of it than in the case of Paul. Similarly, the environmental input is stronger in the case of Peter, maybe more support from the parents or a better teacher. And finally, Peter studies much more than Paul. At the end, they both attain the same level, but with different contributions from the 4 causal components. And this brings us to the last final part of this presentation. First, 2 final reminders. As you can see, achieving among the best students means that they can be obtained from different causal influences. Many causes bring about high achievement, just as you did in your example when you tried to identify at least 3 causal influences. So it's not just one thing that makes an achieving student. The second one is that these influences are not the same for different students, and also even more complex. These influences change over time. For example, the impact of parental influence is not the same when children are in elementary school as when they are in high school. So all these things make for a very complex interpretation of talent development. So, consequently, we could say, as a final little nutshell, final word, academic talent emerges from complex, evolving over time, and unique from student to student interactions between and within all components. So here is the end. Again, I invite you to go to the website if you are interested in knowing more about the DMGT. Thanks for your visit and have a great day.